Why the heck are people still grinding away in The Division 2? Well, it's a darn good question. It's 2024, and seriously, this game is 6 years old. But believe it or not, year after year, this question just won't quit. Let's figure out why.
And if you don't know, now you know.
The Division 2 is like stepping into this massive, chaotic world where everything has gone totally haywire.
I'm here, by the way. Thanks for the introduction.
Oh yeah, that's Tito. So you're part of this elite group called the Division, tasked with restoring order and taking down all sorts of bad guys. It's been a journey. Since the original game, The Division, dropped back in 2016. We're not talking about the biggest bustling community out there.
Somos pocos pero locos.
But you've got gamers from all walks of life, teaming up to explore the city, tackle missions, and just have a blast together. But let's talk about the game's live service model. So you've got seasons, right? They're like these chunks of time where the devs drop new content and events for players to tackle. The cool thing about seasons is they can keep the game feeling fresh and alive. Instead of just dumping a ton of stuff all at once, the devs spread things out over time, giving players something to look forward to on a more regular basis. But sometimes the delivery of these seasons hasn't been smooth sailing. The game has had its fair share of delays, game-breaking bugs, and content that didn't quite hit the mark. Remember those dark ages when they hit the player base with reruns instead of new seasons?
Traumatic stuff, man.
But despite these bumps in the road, the player base keeps coming back for more. Maybe it's the glimpse of hope or the lack of any good game released in 2024.
Or 2023 for that matter.
Whatever it is, the game did something right to keep people hooked for 6 years, even after being resurrected by mouth to mouth. And that's pretty darn impressive in the world of live service games. It shows that even with its flaws, the Division 2 still has a community of believers willing to stick around for the long haul.
Or a bunch of sadists, if you ask me.
That's the type of audience games are looking for, even to this day. This came up at GDC. Just 66 titles saw 80% of all playtime in 2023. And most of them were older games. So for all those new games that come out nowadays...
Uh-oh. Okay,
66
who's this guy?
titles saw 80% of the playtime in 2023. Most of them being old, quotation mark, games like Fortnite or Grand Theft Auto 5. Well, I mean, by the definition, yes, that is true. See, I've been seeing this statement being bandied around a little bit as if it is an indication that the good old days were simply so much better than they are today. But the good old days, well, in this case, the good old days are still pretty much the bad current year days, in my opinion. And the whole thing in and of itself is hardly that groundbreaking, as, well, we had reports from 2022 as well, basically stating the same thing. As it turns out that a game literally designed to be played forever, Fortnite, is being played forever.
Imagine that.
I know. Shocker.
It just feels like the games were so much better than what we've got releasing today. And with the Division 2, those good old days are still pretty much doing the same in these not so good current days, if you catch my drift. Look, in my humble opinion, the Division 2 isn't exactly groundbreaking either.
Poop mouth. Poop out of your mouth.
It just turns out that a game literally designed to be played forever
Is still being played forever?
Yep, you guessed it. It does what it was set out to do. Imagine that.
But what I think is more important and interesting to point out about this entire survey here, which basically suggests that most of the games played are simply quite old. On PC, 9.6 years. On PlayStation, 7.4. Xbox, 7.2, with only the Nintendo Switch having a 3.9. Now, a 4-year period is hardly a blink of an eye, but considering the average development time of video games, a 4-year period of domination by certain titles makes a lot of sense, really. And you also got Zelda, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Super Mario Bros. Wonders, Mario Kart 8. Like, these aren't, Fortnite-style games. Or Grand Theft Auto, which has also kind of become a Fortnite game.
So picture you're a game publisher or a developer, right? You're checking out these charts, seeing what's hot and what's not, and you're probably thinking, hey, we need to jump on the live service game train. Who wouldn't come to that conclusion? I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer, isn't it? Look, even Starfield's up there at number 8. That's wild. Not a lot of single-player games on the list. Now, I'm not sure if Sims is strictly single player like Starfield, but for the Switch, you've got Zelda, Super Mario, right? Sure, you can play with others, but at its core, it's a solo experience. Then you've got games like Pokemon, Animal Crossing, Hogwarts. These are the kinds of games where I bet most folks are flying solo. It's just how it goes.
I think, if anything, the most important takeaways from this thing is two. One, it completely and utterly disproves the Warner Bros. Statement we saw a few weeks ago that, oh, the video game industry is crashing because it's just so darn unreliable. We just can't tell what's going to be popular. It's so volatile, you understand. No, not at all. The video game industry is not particularly volatile in the slightest. In fact, its primary problem appears to be that it's unfathomably sedentary.
Yeah, people are too invested into the existing games, like The Division 2, to play new games.
Again, Fortnite is hardly a spring chicken at this point.
Absolutely. It's like gamers are already deep in the trenches with games like The Division 2, and they're not ready to let go anytime soon. That's why companies like Ubisoft keep churning out these massive live service games. They see the potential. If they can climb up those charts, they become a magnet for even more players. Rumor is even Assassin's Creed Code Red is going to be a live service game. And let's face it, a lot of gamers care a lot about playing the game that's popular because there's a certain satisfaction that comes with dominating a game that everybody's talking about. Plus, when you've poured years of amassed fear of missing out into a game like The Division 2, there's quite a buildup of all that cool stuff. The exotics, apparel, collectibles, builds, you name it. It's treasure hoarded, and no one wants to walk away from that. So yeah, no wonder people are sticking to these games for the long haul.
And it itself was basically just a last-minute deviation to try and get on the, what's that game called?
I think he means the shooter survival thing started with H1Z1. And then PUBG was the first, real super standalone battle royal. It was like H1Z1 crawled and PUBG ran with it. PUBG was the real one in the end.
And Minecraft, which is older still. Minecraft was a topic when I was in school, goddammit.
So you think The Division 2 is old? Minecraft is way older. It's like 13 years old. The Sims, as a franchise, is ancient. It's like from the 90s. Did we even have internet then?
The Sims, goddamn you. The Sims as a franchise is ancient.
F-N-A. I feel like this guy's reading my mind.
Actually, no. The video game industry is not very volatile. It's rather sedentary. And what becomes hits is actually fairly easy to predict because the majority of the market right now are casuals.
It's true. The dude's got a good point. Gaming has become more accessible than ever, and that's led to some changes in how games like The Division 2 are designed. This game has seen all sorts of casual features creeping in over the years, more recently, making the game more approachable for all types of players. Remember when they introduced the Countdown game mode? Then they hit us up with the Descent roguelike game mode, adding even more accessibility. Even before all of that, they gave us Gear 2.0, streamlining the whole gear system. That made it a lot easier for us to wrap our head around it. And let's not forget the shift towards gear sets over high-end builds. It's basically made builds painting by numbers for the casual player. Even the tinkering menu from Project Resolve helped out more recently. And they haven't forgotten about the hardcore crowd either. I mean, just look at the Paradise Lost Incursion. It's somewhere in the middle between hardcore and for casual players, but that's some serious stuff right there. Overall, it's good. They nodded towards casual players because most people are, just by a natural bell curve. Most people are going to be in the middle.
And here's the problem, though. The casuals are also creatures of habit. This makes it very difficult for new contenders to get into this field. It is very difficult for an outside company to try and create Fortnite because, well,
Fortnite already exists.
And thus, nobody is going to switch over from Fortnite to your alternative unless your alternative is absolutely mind-blowingly amazing.
He nailed it right there. This is spot on and hits home for The Division 2. It's true, The Division 2 has this hold on players that's hard to shake. I mean, even before I started covering it on my channel, I noticed how content creators were always on the lookout for the next big thing to dethrone The Division 2. Outriders, The Day Before, you name it, they tried it, but none of them could ever measure up to The Division 2. Sure, some of these games might do a few things better, but when you've already invested so much time and effort into your loot and builds, are you really gonna ditch it all for something new that might not have the legs to go the distance? Nah, I don't think so.
Screw that, bro. Never would you abandon all that investment for a game that doesn't blow the Division 2 out of the water. No way.
People are sticking with the Division 2 because they've already put in the work and they're not about to throw it all away for a game that might not even last. And then Division 2 is good. It's a great game. So yeah, when it comes down to it, you're kind of stuck in the Division 2. But hey, at least it's a pretty good place to be stuck in, right?
Or somehow manages to tickle the pickle of the casual
Tickle the
audience
pickle.
even more so.
I like this guy.
And this can happen on occasion with Call of Duty, for example, which I do believe was, there you go, Call of Duty Modern Warfare there. Because Call of Duty was once actually the outlier. It was the competitor to Medal of Honor, which was the largest shooter multiplayer kind of thing, right? And then Call of Duty came up.
And Modern Warfare 1 completely blew Medal of Honor out of the water. It wasn't even close. As soon as they brought that out, it was like everybody knew they wanted it, but nobody had it. Modern Warfare comes out and it's like, yes, bro.
From behind it, appealed better to the audience and to a wider, more casual audience as well. And now, Medal of Honor, hell, most people probably don't even remember that it was a franchise. So it is possible, but it depends primarily upon your ability to debase yourself yet further. As the wider market, as we often call it, right? It is real to a degree. I like to call it, the illusion of the wider market or the mystical wider market because
yeah, that's such a solid point. The idea of catering to a general audience can sometimes feel like chasing an illusion. The closer you think you're getting, the more it seems to elude your grasp. Because what constitutes a general audience? What does it even mean to target a general audience? It's like an oxymoron. Is there really such a thing as a universally appealing piece of content that everyone will enjoy? Probably not. I mean, did the iPhone do it? Not really. The truth is, the closer you try to tailor your content to appeal to everyone, the more diluted and generic it sort of becomes. So instead of creating something truly unique and compelling, you end up with something that's, I guess, watered down and lacks any real substance. It's like trying to please everyone at a party by serving plain crackers. Sure, it may not offend anyone, but
for the majority of titles, it is a false mirage in the desert. To Total War, for example, the wider market is absolutely a big fat lie because you're a Total War game. You will never be Fortnite. No matter how hard you try to appeal to the lowest common denominator, you will never ever reach them because they're gonna look at you, a strategy game, huff, spit on you, and get back to playing Call of Duty.
Yep, it's been decided.
For these games, success is more easily achieved.
Yeah, I mean, the real thing is that it's all about authenticity and staying true to what makes your content unique. Fortnite didn't try to be PUBG, and that's why it succeeded. It stayed true to its roots, and players appreciate that. The problem arises when developers chase trends without understanding what made those trends successful in the first place. Happens all the time. It's like trying to copy someone else's homework without understanding the subject matter. Sure, you might get something down on paper, but it's not gonna have the same depth or quality as the original. Even streamers. Have you guys ever seen streamers that try to follow the metas? They just go and play the most popular game, and then nobody watches them, and it hurts their stream because it's actually not a good idea to do that. Trying to follow the latest trends might get you a temporary boost in viewership, but in the long run, it's not sustainable. Viewers can sense authenticity, and they're more likely to stick around for someone who's genuine and passionate about what they're doing, what they're covering. So yeah, instead of chasing mirages and trends, it's better to double down on what makes you unique and cater to your core audience. That's where true success lies.
Just be yourself. Be yourself. Be yourself. Be yourself.
All you really need to do is go for your core audience, which is what Nintendo proves again and again and again and again. Why do we have 8 Mario Kart games? Now, bear you in mind, I don't know much about Mario Kart, so perhaps I'm wildly mistaken here, but I do believe that the core gameplay loop of Mario Kart has remained largely unchanged as number 1. Why then are there 8 of them? Why are we still making Zelda games? Why are we still making Super Mario Brothers games? Because you have a thing, it has an audience, and you simply keep feeding that audience what it wants year after year after year.
It's like that with movies too. Just look at Fast and Furious. How many titles do we have? 10? Probably more by now. They were like, Vin, bro, just one more. He's like, I don't know, man. The people are counting on you, Vin. All right, I'll do number 52, then like 53, 54, 55, and Vin is racing in a wheelchair.
Yup, Ubisoft had a major misstep there. It was like they hit pause on serving up fresh content. And that left players in the lurch for almost 2 years. Then later, out of the blue during a live stream, Yannick casually mentioned that Ubisoft had decided to pull the plug on support for the game. Nobody told us. But thankfully, investor pressure had pushed them to rethink that decision, though not before losing some key team members to other projects, which made getting back on track sort of a pain. So the team went back into action, but short on resources, and things were a bit rough, no doubt. PC players in particular were feeling the heat with game-breaking bugs. We lost a lot of that player base. But as the devs rolled up their sleeves and dove back into the game, magical things started to happen.
The player base began to grow.
Bingo. With fresh content and game modes hitting the scene, the tide began to turn. Then, in a savvy move, they brought the Division 2 to Steam in January 2023, drawing in a whole new wave of players. And it was noticeable. But it was in the fall of 2023 when things really kicked into high gear. Suddenly, it seemed like everyone
And their grandma.
was jumping into the game. Newbies, returning players, they were flooding in. And here we are in 2024, and the momentum is still going strong. Remember, this is a 6-year-old game, and that's a testament to the resilience of the community. Seriously.
That is how you build a franchise. Too many developers today are trying to become Fortnite, just overnight, just like that. Oh hey, we're an enormous success. You're not going to be. The odds of you being the next blow-up success are about 0.0000000 ad infinitum 0.1%, especially in a market already oversaturated with the next big things. Unless you actually do come up with a completely different next big thing, you're not going to be competing with the already entrenched opposition. I thought we would have learned this lesson via World of Warcraft and the MMO boom, where 98% of those games failed miserably, but
It's all about giving the people what they want.
it is the video game industry, and its ability to absorb wisdom and or lessons is equal to that of a brain-damaged goldfish submerged in a tank currently engulfed in electricity and or mustard gas.
Hey, I find that offensive. I have friends that are goldfish. Don't get canceled, bro.
Anyways, you get the general drift. You need to create the audience. See, Total War didn't become big overnight either. It built an audience slowly but surely over time by perfecting the formula. The grand strategy in general is a fantastic example of what new developers need to be aiming for. You need to be aiming for the paradox model. Now, Paradox has gone to hell in a handbasket in and of itself, but the basic idea is still build an audience, build a niche, and then construct. And you are not even giving up the possibility of becoming a blow-up success by doing so.
And that's why the Division franchise has become a cornerstone for Ubisoft moving forward. While they may have decided to pull the plug on some of their other titles, the Division remains a priority.
Helldivers 2, the perfect example. Nobody played Helldivers 1. Okay, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but you get what I'm saying, right? And then Helldivers 2 arrived, and boom! Everywhere. It's now one of the biggest games, and when this list comes out for, 2024, etc., it's probably going to be on it. It's probably going to be competing with Fortnite, actually. You've got to construct franchises, video game developers. You cannot go for one-and-dump games anymore, because the market of hits is probably dead.
That's a solid observation. Yeah, franchises tend to attract a dedicated following because players feel more secure investing their time into something they know is likely going to stick around. It's worth the investment of ridiculous amounts of time because they don't have to worry about that all being flushed away whenever they just make a new game. And for the devs, when a game becomes a franchise, they've got a winning formula, so why not replicate that success? It's all about chasing the W's, right? And building on what works.
And this does suck to a certain degree, absolutely, because what I'm essentially saying is you've got to make this is my franchise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that hardly encourages innovation in the gaming market. And I wish it wasn't so. I wish we could return to the days of, Company of Heroes and Dawn of War, where games would release and they would at least have something special about them, right? Company of Heroes, a revolution in the strategy game market. Dawn of War 2, and 1 with the sync kill animations. The sync kill animations weren't anything particularly revolutionary when you think about it. All it really is that units look cool when they kill each other, but at least it was something, right? Especially compared to Dawn of War 3 or Company of Heroes, the new one, so on, so on.
The Division 2 didn't really invent a lot of new things from the existing Division original game. Sure, there were new things, but it was mainly just a massively improved version of what already existed. But it was really good, and what it did well. And we've seen some gameplay from the upcoming Division Heartland. I didn't see anything being invented in it, not really. I saw some features we wish were in the Division 2. I saw expanded concepts on what works from the Division games already. I even saw things I saw in other games, like Modern Warfare 2. It has a red eclipse virus acting as a boundary that closes in and minimizes the playable area to force a more intense PvP engagement as time goes on. Call of Duty had something like that. So there are survival elements from the Division 1. Food and water are vital resources needed to be consumed, stuff like that. But it does suck that building on a winning formula can stunt innovation. I think it's important to at least insert one really innovative standout concept into the game. I mean, it's really a draw and a demonstration of a promise to the community that devs are always looking to take it to the next level. Avatar was one of the games I tried, and it had a lot of people comparing it to Far Cry, which I never really played, but I understand the idea. And when I was playing that game, I didn't really feel like anything was innovative about it, and it was a big title. I thought that was a letdown. And Division 3 was announced, no release date, but it's coming. And I don't actually expect it to reinvent the wheel or anything like that, but I truly hope they innovate a few key elements. There are a lot of strengths to build on. That's utterly the most important thing. But on the other hand, to take the same game and just place it in another city would be really a drag, especially if they apply the same standard open world Ubisoft model to it, which I do expect to be the case. But that is a looter shooter for you. I'm not sure the community really knows what they want to see in the Division 3 either. I think if you ask any longtime player, I think you'd get a typical list of things. But I bet those things could mostly fall under an improvement patch, not a whole new game. And like if you get new factions, a new city, that's just a DLC. So what does a new Division game in sequence look like? For me, I'd like to see a more of this and less of that approach. That means we'd have to take a long, hard look in the mirror and ask, does the Dark Zone work for PvP? Did it ever? Really? A repurpose of the DZ could be innovative enough all on its own. Maybe.
So please, video game developers, stop trying to be Fortnite. You will never be Fortnite. Now, you could potentially eventually become a Fortnite-esque thing if you build on it. And this goes out specifically to Warner Brothers as well. The volatility of the franchise. The franchise is set in goddamn stone. It is simply that you are trying to compete with stone on being hard. And thus, unless you happen to be a diamond, you're probably going to lose out. Especially when you have a tremendous amount of potential IP power like Warner Brothers. What you need to try to do is be Mario Brothers rather than Fortnite. And this goes out to all of the smaller developers as well. If you're making a game, make it for your audience first. Once you've constructed a base, then you can build on that base. And once you have a loyal fan base, they will almost never ever abandon you, even if you repeatedly and consistently abuse the shit out of them.
Division 2 players, this probably hits home really hard. And I salute you. Give yourself a pat on the back for sticking through the ups and downs. Without you, really, who knows where the game would be now. And hey, with the Division 3 on the horizon, it seems like your dedication really paid off. But here's the thing. Some of these new additions to the Division universe are shaky. Heartland, for instance, I mean, it looks promising, sure, but only time will tell if it lives up to the hype. And then there's Resurgence, the mobile game. I tried the beta, and yeah, it's alright, but why make a mobile version? It feels like they're trying to make a quick grab for that mystical general audience. But what about the core audience? They're already invested in the main game. Sure, mobile games are all the rage, but I don't see Division players sneaking in a quick session of Resurgence like one would do with Candy Crush. I'd rather have a way to access the current Division 2 on my phone, you know, and even then, I'm not sure I'd actually do it. So Heartland has been in development for ages, and word on the street is it didn't get the best feedback, so they're making changes. Good move, I guess, but it really needs to hit the mark for us Division players. It's extremely disappointing when new additions like Heartland and Resurgence fall short. I mean, it's a slap in the face because those resources could have been put into making the Division 2, the core game, even better, right? I'm all for expanding the franchise, but let's not forget about the game that got us here in the first place. With a bit more focus, the Division 2 could have been topping those charts alongside the big hitters, and I'm sure of that.
I guess even building the franchise can go wrong on occasion if you forget about your actual audience. But still, that, in my opinion, is the takeaway of this. Don't try to be Fortnite, try to be, if anything, Medieval 2.
I think if you're looking for a cool third-person shooter for 2024, 2025, throw the Division 2 in the mix. It's kind of like the little engine that could. Despite the odds, it stood the test of time and seems like it's gonna stick around for a long while. One neat thing about it is that it's super affordable, so you can snag it for anywhere between $7 to $30, depending on where and when you look. So even if you end up not vibing with it, at least your wallet won't be crying. As far as timing, right now is like the calm before the storm in a good way. Originally, we were supposed to get this cool DLC set in Brooklyn right about now, but the devs threw us a curveball with Project Resolve instead. This was a game rebalancing and quality of life overhaul. Anyways, so they pushed the DLC to early 2025. This means newcomers have time to really ease into the game without feeling rushed to catch up with the general player base. Plus, you'll have plenty of company with all the newbies and returning players hopping on board. And that creates a system of support. There's a whole community backing you up out there. I even whipped up some fresh guides for 2024, so you won't be flying blind if you decide to jump in. So by the time you've caught up with everybody else, boom, the DLC hits, and you're right there in the thick of it with the rest of us. And likely, there's at least 2 more years of the Division 2 fun before we even start transitioning into the Division 3. So yeah, if you're up for an adventure, now's the time, dive in. Let's take a closer look at the roadmap. So this season coming is season 1 of year 6. It's sort of a gap season, but does bring some quality of life updates. Hopefully we see what those are soon. And the rest is more of the usual season events. But season 2 is huge because it brings a new seasonal structure, Seasons 2.0. I, for one, am more excited about this than anything because I think the current season structure is a drag. We've had it forever. It has too many ebbs and flows and not enough incentive on the back end of the season for casuals to stick around. And so I think we're gonna see more microtransactions as part of it. Seasons 2.0, sure. I don't have any idea what that looks like, but perhaps more content too. And then at the turn of the year comes the new DLC in Brooklyn. Around this time, we will see extended storylines, maps, missions, gear options. There has been discussions on a new gear item type hitting the game. Can't wait to find out more about that. So with the new season setup and a juicy DLC on the horizon, it feels like the Division 2's got enough fuel to keep chugging along through year 7 and likely even through year 8 because the Division 3 is in the works. It's gonna likely hit right around the tail end of the new DLC's cycle. That'll keep the hype train rolling if they time it just right. All right, time to talk about the elephant in the room. So the only thing that can destroy the Division franchise is the Division franchise itself. It's like this delicate balance, you know? They almost tipped it over once upon a time, but thankfully they managed to steer it back on track. I know a lot of the longtime player base is only interested in more new content, but Project Resolve in year 5 season 3 was probably the biggest step in that direction. It brought back so many old faces and even roped in a bunch of newbies. I mean, in 2024, half of the player base is made up of fresh or returning players. That's wild for a 6-year-old game. But who is the core audience? The ones rooted in should be held closely to the game's heart because without them, the growth wouldn't be there. I am a longtime player. I basically have never left the game since 2019. And the only game I have driven significant hours into outside of the Division 2 is Starfield. Call me crazy, but I love that game.
I get it.
I haven't played it in a while, but they have some patches coming up, so we'll dip our toes back in. Sure, I dabbled in some other games here and there to test the waters, but none of them quite hit the spot like the Division 2. This game keeps people coming back for more. And I know I'm not alone in feeling that way. For people that play the Division, it's like we're all secretly hoping some new game will come along and steal our hearts away. But let's be real, the Division 2, it's got us. We're in its grips. But now that's good news because we know there's gonna be a Division 3. So there's this ongoing joke in the community when somebody hops into my stream and asks, hey, should I buy the Division 2 in 2024? I say no. Why? Because it'll ruin all other games out there for you. And if The Division 2 is the first game you ever sunk your teeth into,
It's over for you, buddy. Stick a fork in it. One and done.
Okay, you're good? Got what you wanted?
That was awesome. Well done. Well done.
Thank you. And it's just year 6, and I really can't wait until we can start telling them about what's coming after with all this.
thank you for hanging out with me today. My name is Tuxedo Bandido. That's Tito Bandido.
It's me!
This was another episode of The Division 2. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, like, and turn on notifications to ensure you don't miss out on the fantastic experiences waiting for you in The Division 2. And if you like builds like this, check out the recommended video I have here for you. If you have anything you want to see covered, be sure to let me know in the comments below. And thank you to all the channel members and donors who make everything possible. Tux Nation wouldn't be without you.
When you buy a game from Ubisoft, enter the creator code Tuxedo Bandido to support the channel. Easy peasy.
Follow me.
I get it.